boys and girls, and welcome to Kids Continued. Today, we are in the book of Joshua. We're looking at chapter 2 and then chapter 4 and all the way to 6. So if you have a read and you read Joshua from chapter 1 to 6, you'll cover a lot of what we're talking about today. And we are going to cover a lot. I'm even going to check if you remember things from our previous lessons. Okay, because we've kind of been building up, following the family all the way from Abraham to now. So let's see what you guys remember from those stories and if you can see how they fit in with this one. So like I said, we're in the book of Joshua. Now the time has come and Moses has passed away, so he has died, and there is a man. Can you guess what his name is? His name is Joshua, and he is now the leader of the Israelites. And God is taking Joshua and directing him and the people into the promised land. Now the promised land is in the land of Canaan. If you remember from a few weeks back, the land of Canaan already had people in it, and people that the Israelites were not too interested in fighting. But Joshua, like Moses and a lot of the Israelites, there were those few that doubted, but he believed in God and he trusted in God. And he sent 2 spies. Now this is quite cool because the last time Joshua was part of 2 spies that thought now is time for us to go into the land of Canaan, even though these people are maybe a bit strong. Now Joshua was sending 2 spies into the land to just see what's going on, okay? And when they got there, they were met by a woman named Rahab. And Rahab went to some extreme lengths. I say extreme because if the king is coming to your house looking for spies that are possibly in his kingdom, it's a little extreme for you to lie to protect them and to save them so that they wouldn't get killed. And she did that. She knew who these spies were. She knew that they were part of the Israelite nation and that this nation was going to live in this land, that God had promised them this land because she had heard the stories of what God had done for this nation, how God had saved them from Egypt, parted the sea for them to cross, and had led them through the wilderness. Now Rahab hid the spies on her roof when the king's men came and sent the king's men off on like a wild goose chase, if that's what it is, because she sent them in a different direction to where they actually were. So these men promised to remember Rahab, okay? The spies promised to remember Rahab and how faithful she had been and trusting, and that she knew God, knew his plan for the Israelite nation, so she would be saved. Now, when the spies got back, they told Joshua, this is all that's going on, maybe the lay of the land, what the people were doing, how to get in and out of the city, things like that. Now, this city, Jericho, had a pretty big wall around it. Pretty sure this is ringing a bell on a story that you may have heard. But we're not getting there yet, okay? Because before they get to the city, to Jericho, there is a river that they have to cross. This river Jordan. Now the river Jordan was pretty big and pretty deep, and they don't really have time or materials to like make a boat or something like that to get across. But God had another plan. He told Joshua to tell the people and to tell the priests to take the Ark of the Covenant. Do you remember this from when we were talking about the tabernacle? Okay, to take the Ark of the Covenant with them and for the priests to walk first and walk towards the river. Now when that happened and when they did that, the river started to almost divide, kind of like with the Red Sea. Okay, when the Israelites had to cross that out of Egypt. Okay, so they were given a path that they could walk across this river to get to the other side. And I mean everyone. Everyone got to walk across the river. So the priests with the Ark of the Covenant stood in the middle so that the water was separated and the people could walk across. And this is thousands of people. Remember, this is a whole nation with many tribes. Okay, we're going to get to that now. Let's see if you can remember where these tribes come from and where their names come from. Okay, So all these people walk across the river, and then as they are walking through and everyone's gone through, the priests and the tabernacle carry on going, and the water goes back to normal, like running like a fast, big, deep river that it is. Now, the tribes of Israel, okay, that make up the nation of Israel, there are 12 of them. I'm going to let you think about that for a bit. But what was going to happen now is that Joshua told the people that one person from each of the tribes must take a stone, okay, and they placed it and made a monument, okay, like a structure, so that it would be a marker and a reminder to the people of who God is and what He has done. And they told the people that when you walk past this, when people ask, what is this for? Tell them what it is for. Tell them what God has done for you, how He has provided for you, how He has saved you. A reminder to the people and to tell other people about what God has done. So now my question is, I had said there were 12 tribes of Israel. Now, I'm not going to ask you to remember all of their names, but maybe if you can remember the story where it came from. Firstly, like Israel, how does Israel fit in? So if you remember the story we did about Jacob and his brother Esau. Now, near the end of that story, we heard about how Jacob had wrestled with God. Do you remember that? And his name was changed to Israel. So that's where Israel comes from. Now, I'm hoping you know this, or maybe you're guessing, that the 12 tribes of Israel, okay, come from his 12 sons. So if you go back and have a look in our story, in the Bible where we were learning about Jacob and all his family, okay, maybe you can figure out and find what the names of the 12 tribes are, okay, and they were represented by the rocks by the river. Now we're getting to the next part, okay. All this is they just crossed the river, which was quite something, but now they have to get into the place where they're supposed to live. This town called Jericho, the city of Jericho. But remember I said there are some pretty big walls there, the defenses that the king has put up. So this story, you might know this part of it pretty well. But I'm going to tell you in any case, and you see maybe there's things when you read in your Bible, there's some things you didn't know or things that you'd forgotten about. So as they get closer to the city, God tells Joshua to tell the people to walk around the city just once, okay, but once every day for 6 days. Okay, so day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. Just once a day, okay? And then on the 7th day, to walk around 7 times, and on the last time, you're going to shout and blow your trumpets, and the walls will come crumbling down. Now, this sounds very strange. How on earth is this going to happen? How are these walls going to come down just by walking around? I mean, no one's fighting. There's no swords, there's no spears, there's no whatever other things you can use when you're maybe going to fight a war, trying to get into a town or into a city. But God had a plan, and the people could trust God to provide for them, to protect them, and to lead them to the promised land that He had given them. So the people did this. They walked around once a day for 6 days, and then on the 7th day, they walked around 7 times. And guess what? They blew their trumpets, they shouted, and the walls came tumbling down. Okay, it must have been quite a sight to see. And that's when the Israelites could go in. There's probably some fighting because of the people that were there, okay? But they didn't have to worry about getting over the wall because God had provided a way for them into the city. And don't forget, remember that lady we met right at the beginning, Rahab? She was kept safe during this. God was faithful, kept His word, just as Rahab believed in God, was faithful, kept the spies safe. Okay. Now, throughout all of this story, there's a lot that's going on. And the people, I think, had learned their lessons about trusting God, that He would provide for them, The things he said he would do. And they are now in the promised land, the land where God wanted them to be. All that so many years ago. Do you remember how many years? It was 40 years ago. But then they lost faith. They doubted what was happening. They were more worried about the people that were around them than believing that God could conquer what was going on. God fought for his people, for the Israelite nation, and got them to the land that he had promised. And he will fight for us too. He provides for us, he looks after us, and he guides us. We just need to trust him, and also to continue to read his word so that we know more about him and more about his will for our life. I hope that you guys have learned something new, and go have a look, read in Joshua 1 to chapter 6, see what else is in there. And I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time.